Hello there, I'm Simon Colton at SensorLab of Monash University and the Game AI group at Queen Mary. And today's talk is an update on the Art Done Quick app, and yes, I was very pleased with that paper title. Now, Art Done Quick enables you to make pretty pictures like this. So it is an iOS app for iPad and iPhones, which is a creativity support tool with which people can make decorative art. But that's not how I think about it. I think of it as a casual creator where anything that anyone does is fun. That's my hope for it anyway. And in fact, when I'm developing Art Done Quick, at all times I have in mind Willy Wonka's chocolate room in his chocolate factory, which Roald Dahl, the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, describes as a great valley in which everything from the pebbles on the floor to the leaves in the tree is edible. And this must be the most fun place in children's literature because there's a huge variety of things to try, some of which are genuinely crazy and weird. The whole valley is on show, so there's no hidden corners or places to get lost. There's just one thing to do. There's no big learning curve. You just eat stuff and then move on to the next thing. Importantly, everything tastes sweet, so nothing leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And this enables the kids to run around in safety, rapidly going from one place to another and eating as to their heart's content. So this is what I want for Art Done Quick. I don't want it to be some kind of Zen-like mind palace casual creator. I want it to be a riotous food fest of a casual creator. So in principle, for Art Done Quick, I don't want there to be any learning curve, no hidden UI elements or elements which change in different contexts. There should be nothing which doesn't work. Everything should look great, all the artwork produced should look great and be varied. And I want users to be able to run around, to be able to rapidly go from one thing to another. And I want there to be lots of fun and weird graphics techniques for people to try out. To try and achieve this aim, I've been following a fun-first design methodology, which has got three parts to it really. The prime directive, and thanks to a reviewer for that phrase, is that the app should have fast, fluid, and interesting image generation. And a huge majority of my time has been spent on making this thing fast and fluid by optimizing evolutionary art techniques like crazy. I've also followed Kate Compton's casual creative design patterns wherever I can, dipping into them to give me inspiration from time to time. And I've also looked around the App Store and looked at other casual creators and seen what people also like to do. And I've imported those ideas, things like drawing, montage, that kind of thing is very popular. So I've imported that into Art Done Quick. Here is the first demo of Art Done Quick. This is what Kate calls the bubble wrap screen, which is a fantastic analogy which I'm going to use over and over again. You tap on empty cells and an image appears. You double tap on one and you get 8 variations. And you can continue doing this, evolving your creations until you see one that you like. When you do, you can tap on it and generate it at high resolution. Throw it around, there's a bit of physics going on there. And if you want to, you can play around with it through the edit screen. Here I am liquefying it with a twirl motif, which is beautifully kind of textural and nice to play around with. There's also a carnival mirror wobble option in this particular edit screen. And there's loads of things you can do in the edit screen just to play around. And this is the interesting, weird graphic stuff that I want people to be able to play with. You can make more interesting graphic designs by throwing in montages and collages. I've added a kaleidoscope and a kind of necklace effect here. You can also overlay textures in order to give a bit more photorealism. Here I'm going to overlay a canvas texture to make it look like it's painted on a canvas a little bit. And to increase the photorealisticness, I can add in some lighting effects. This is a spotlight, but it doesn't quite work, so I'll go for a flood fill instead. These edits are carried over into the children of the image when you go back to the bubble wrap sheet, and their children look like they've had the same edits done, which they have. So you might prefer one of these to the one that you started with, and you can continue evolving in that way. It's all very fluid. This is all in real time, I should point out this video. You can personalize your images, and what I'm going to do here is add some words to celebrate how well Kate and Max have done with this workshop. Add them to the image and play around with the font a little bit. And again, you'll be able to post these onto social media, of course, through the app. So Kate and Max rock is the message of the day, and that's been added, and of course that is carried over as well, so that will generate more of these designs, and maybe the blue and orange one is more to your taste. Okay, so that is a brief introduction to Art Done Quick on the iPad. 2.5 minutes, that demo, and you can see we achieved a lot. Lots of running around and gorging on images, just like in Wonka's Chocolate Valley. So image generation is done via mathematical functions which control the position and color of a set of n shapes added to the canvas over t time steps. And this is highly susceptible to crossover and mutation. Mutation works well, as you've already seen, by double tapping. And these three likely lads here, John McCormack, Panuza Machado, and Simon Lucas, all independently suggested that crossover would be really, really cool. Drag one image onto another and see some resulting images which look a bit like both parents. So I implemented the UI for this under this intense pressure from these guys, but I knew that while mutating the set of mathematical functions works in an evolutionary fashion, crossover always produces unsatisfying results. And the results here you can see from the middle two images being crossed over into the outer 10 images are unsatisfying, and I'll describe why that is later on. So I did accept the challenge, and I needed to define what unsatisfying really is and come up with a better crossover method, as I'll describe now. So the breakthrough came after 10 years of failed attempts by revisiting an idea which I previously rejected because I assumed the images would be likely to be too messy. But then I went back to my fun first design methodology and I thought, why shouldn't they be messy? This is not really about the image generation, it's about having fun rather than producing professional quality images. So messy is really good, ask any child. So the idea I had was normally genomes of children inherit some chromosomes from one parent and some from another. My idea was that each child inherits all of the chromosomes from both parents, but they control fewer shapes, or half of the shapes. So what you then do is that the shapes are added from each parent at each time step, which nicely mixes up the shapes into the child image when it's rendered. And this works really very well, actually. There was one issue, which is that if one of the parents have got very large shapes and the other one has very small shapes, maybe transparent, then the first parent's children, the shapes from the first parent are going to dominate and they're going to swamp the child image. So I fixed that by having a proportional approach whereby the amount of white space in the parent phenome, the image, dictates how many shapes they get to control in the child, with it being inversely proportional. Sorry I can't go into details right now, but do please see the paper for further details of this. Here are some images. They are beautifully messy and they are lovely dogs' dinners, and they get a lot more messy than this. And to me at least, it does feel like akin to getting messy with some paints on a real canvas. The big question I had was, does it actually work? So I came up with a definition of a satisfying child C from parents P1 and P2 as being somewhat but not too much like both P1 and P2, and somewhat but not too much like all the other children which are produced. To work out whether something looks somewhat like another image, I used ResNet 50, this machine vision neural network, in a headless fashion, which produces 2048 floats as a vector for each input image. If you take the Euclidean distance of the vector produced for image C from that of P1 and P2, you get a notion of how close it is visually to P1 and P2, and it works incredibly well. However, we need to know how far it should be away. It shouldn't be too close, but it shouldn't be too far either. So I came up with this sweet spot distance of about 0.08, which is a mutation rate at rate 1, which is the distance of a child on average from its parent when mutated with just a mutation rate of 1. I did that over 1,000 trials. Mutation works really well. The children of mutation are satisfying, so that distance seems to be a nice sweet spot. And you can do similarly for the average pairwise distance of the children from each other with respect to the sweet spot. And there's some beautiful mathematics in the paper. It's right here on the screen. I normalized so that the crossover score represents how well the child image is satisfying with respect to the two parents. Normalized to be at most 1, and so likewise the sibling score, the average sibling score. for a set of children produced. The inputs, the results are in the paper. Please do look them over. But it was fairly clear that with respect to this measure, the best of the old techniques, which include only a proportion from each parent, gets 0.361 with respect to this measure. But the Swan-Fix method gets 0.514 and is clearly better with respect to this measure. I tried 19 crossover schemes, and that was the best one. And it also does incredibly well with respect to the sibling score. But don't take my word for it. Have a look at the results. On the left set of images, the 2 in the middle have been crossed over to produce a 10 around the edge, and similarly on the right. The first on the left is the original method, and you can see the results are not satisfying. 5 of the children look far too much like one of the parents and not the other one, and vice versa. And each child looks a bit too much like one of the others as well. Whereas in the second set on the right, you'll see that each child looks a bit like both parents, but not too much. And the siblings look a bit like each other, but again, there aren't that many which are too close to each other. So that is the new method for crossover, which works beautifully. Here is another demo. This is a pre-prepared sheet with hundreds of images on it. If you zoom in and just choose one, pick it up and drop it onto another, you get the children. And you can see they're fairly satisfying. They look a bit like both parents. You can do that like you can do mutation. Any child of the offspring can be mutated similarly by just double tapping, like I do here. You can view it. It is getting very messy. I double tap this one, and I'll show you a couple more examples of crossover here. See, this one works quite well. It looks a bit like both parents again. This one works quite well. So another thing you can do with the sheet, the bubble wrap sheet, is to zoom in a bit closer. And as you zoom in, you start to get captions for these images. The emotional parallel of bubbles, the speculation of fame. The next one is extremely the relation manifest. I tell the imaginaries. That's a great one. These are mock-up titles, a bit tongue-in-cheek, which I call pseudo-profound, pseudo-bullshit, using International Art English, ResNet machine vision, and some color profiling, and some text manipulation. And there's a whole paper about that if you're interested in it. There's lots of images here, so various people suggested I come up with a way of organizing them automatically. So I've done some clustering. So here is a beautiful animation. The clusters appear pretty much straight away. And when you zoom in, they're also meant to be fun. So you can throw them around, you can spin them, because spinning things is cool. And when you spin them, the title reorganizes. This is a nice bit of polish. There are titles to each of these, so there's Sweet Tamarillos, Intense Japonicas. This one is Jacob's Jonkles, Roses Abloom. And it doesn't quite work yet, but they describe them. This one is Liliaceous Amaranths, and when you tap on it, it tells you Liliaceous means like a lily, tulip, or bluebell, and Amaranths is an imaginary flower that never fades. And you can go back into the sheet and cross over to your heart's content as well. Very rushed in this talk, and I've really not had time to go over much technical detail. There's been 4 papers published this year on Art Done Quick, all technical. The paper in this workshop details how I got that clustering to be so fast and all of the experimentation to get crossover right. There's a short paper in the main conference where I apply this to creativity theatre, where a third-party AI system hand appears on screen and starts controlling Art Done Quick. The AISB 2020 paper talks about how I get those bullshit captions to work, and the Evo Muse Art paper from the start of the year is really how I took an old style evolutionary art technique and massaged it into this nice, fluid, fast, casual creator. There is some new stuff I want to share with you today. So for the last couple of months I've been in a deathmatch wrestle with neural style transfer, which, let's face it, isn't ready for this kind of application, but I think I've run the wrestling match. I've trained at least 500 models. I've had to hack like hell to gain control, fidelity and quality on device, but it does work. So this demo allows the user to add images of their own now, photos to the image sheet. This is Blanca Perez-Ferrer, who has the unfortunate title of being my wife, sadly. And I'm sure she's not very happy about that. But I did get her permission to use this image, of course. This is adding some graphics techniques to it. This is a classic in other casual creators. And this is a bit of style transfer. So adding some circles there, you can see that I've got control over the types of circles and the strength of it being added with this slider. I'll show you another style transfer. These are squares, get this kind of watercolor effect, and again you've got full control over the amount that is being added. I'll show you another couple. This one is an Aztec look based on the images of Gustav Klimt, as you might imagine, and again you can change it. And the last one is the one I'm going to stick with, which is based on an image of Roy Lichtenstein, and you can see it's very pop arty. And you can also change the amount of the original fades in, so you can get the colours of the original and the style of or the texture of the style if you want. Interestingly, this is mutatable, so when you double tap on it, you get variations which are varied the liquefying and varied the style, so you get quite different images. And also, if you load up another image, which I'm going to do right now, then when you drag the image onto one of these existing styled images, so here's me looking bedraggled as usual. When I drag that onto one of the existing images, it inherits that style, and you'll see that it does the liquefying of my face with a carnival mirror, and also applies this style on top, so you get some beautifully exotic pictures of me, let's say. And looking at my very best as usual. And the last one I want to show you is exactly how I look when I get up every morning. But enough of that. So there is plenty of future work to be done. I won't go into great detail, but there are two main research questions. How to mutate and cross over sequences of post-processing image edits, like the liquefying, like the adding style transfer. I think I'll need automation to get that nice and smooth and accurate. And now we can put in digital images. It's not clear how to cross over to digital photos and how to montage them and so forth. So how to deal natively with those as I do with the generated image at the moment. I think it'll all be done by Christmas for the alpha release. And then there'll probably be about a year of polish, prep and promotion before I go live with it on the App Store. And maybe I might make it by summer of next year. Thank you very much for listening. Do please ask me some questions now in the session, or on Discord, Slack, Twitter, wherever you want. Please follow me on Twitter at Simon G. Colton, and I'll leave you there with an image of another style transfer using some kind of scribble approach that Blanca herself put together with the version of the app on her phone. Thanks a lot.